When my daughter-in-law told me to leave, I smiled instead of crying. I smiled because I didn't know what else to do. My heart felt heavy, but my mind tried to stay calm. I had spent years loving my son, raising him and hoping to be part of his life. Yet, in that quiet moment, I realized that the woman I welcomed into my family had decided I was no longer welcome. It happened on a rainy afternoon. I remember the gray clouds pressed close to the house, the soft sound of raindrops on the windows, and the smell of wet earth outside. I had come over to help with lunch. My son was at work, and I thought it would be nice to spend time with them. But the moment I walked into the kitchen, the atmosphere changed. She was standing there, her face tight with something I couldn't recognize. I said hello and she barely nodded. I tried to make small talk, but she cut me short. Then softly, almost like she was afraid to say it, she told me to leave. I blinked, thinking I had misunderstood. But her eyes were firm, unyielding, and I knew she meant it. For a moment I froze. Memories of years spent loving, caring, and sharing with my son flooded my mind. I thought about birthdays, dinners, late-night talks, and family traditions. I thought about the times I had gone out of my way to help her, thinking we were building a bond. And now it was gone, just like that. I didn't cry. I didn't shout. I simply nodded, smiled softly, and said, "Okay." As I walked out, I felt a strange mix of sadness, confusion, and quiet resignation. I didn't understand what had led to this moment. I didn't know if my son had spoken to her, or if it had all been her decision. All I knew was that my place in their lives had changed forever. My son Michael was the center of my world. From the day he was born, I dedicated myself to being there for him. I held him when he cried, celebrated his little victories, and guided him through life's challenges. He grew up to be kind, thoughtful, and hardworking. I was proud of him every single day. When he met Anna, I was hopeful. She was polite, well-mannered, and seemed to share our values. I remember meeting her for the first time at a small coffee shop. She smiled warmly, and I thought, maybe this is someone who could become part of our family. Over the months, we celebrated holidays, shared meals, and laughed together. I believed we were building a bond that would last. I did my best to be a good mother-in-law. I offered help when she needed it, shared recipes, and even tried to give space when she wanted privacy. I wanted her to feel comfortable, to feel like part of our family. Sometimes I worried that maybe I was too involved, too eager. But I thought love could never hurt. I thought wrong. In the early days, there were small signs. She would brush off my advice, dismiss my suggestions, or make quiet comments that seemed harmless at first. I told myself I was overthinking. After all, everyone has small disagreements. But the unease never fully went away. There were moments when I felt a distance growing, though I couldn't put my finger on why. Michael, being a gentleman, never noticed, or maybe he chose not to. He trusted her, valued her perspective, and often took her side when small disagreements arose. I understood. I loved my son and I wanted him to be happy. I just never imagined that happiness would come at the cost of our relationship. First, life was calm. We shared meals, talked about the children, and celebrated birthdays. I thought I was part of their life, part of their joy. I thought I mattered. Little by little, things shifted. Conversations grew shorter. Visits became less frequent. I tried to reach out, to ask how she was feeling, to be present, but she became more distant each time. It was subtle at first, almost imperceptible. But by the time that rainy afternoon arrived, the distance had grown into a wall. I remember sitting in my own home the night before she asked me to leave. I thought about the first time Michael introduced me to her. The excitement in his eyes, the hope in my heart. I never expected that hope would slowly fade into heartbreak. I never expected that someone I welcomed with open arms would one day make me feel unwelcome in my own family. It started with small disagreements. She would comment on how I raised Michael, subtly pointing out flaws. "I think Michael would prefer it if things were done differently," she said once, as if my years of experience didn't exist. I tried to brush it off. I smiled, nodded, and continued my way. But inside I felt a sting, a quiet ache I couldn't voice. Family dinners became tense. I would set the table, prepare the food, and she would barely acknowledge my effort. I remember one evening I made Michael's favorite stew. I put my heart into it, hoping to see his smile, hoping to feel some warmth in our family connection. When I served it, she said, "I don't think this is the right way to make it." Her words were polite, but the tone cut deeper than any harsh remark could. Michael tried to mediate, but he was torn. He loved both of us and didn't want conflict. I understood him, but every time he stepped back, I felt more isolated. I started noticing subtle changes. The way she arranged the furniture, the way she spoke to me in the kitchen, even the way she looked at me when I entered a room, it all felt like judgment, rejection. I tried to talk to her once, hoping for honesty. "Is there something bothering you?" I asked softly in my living room. She hesitated, looked down, then said, "I just think some things could be different." I nodded, not wanting to push, but the words lingered, an invisible wedge between us. Weeks turned into months. Invitations to visit became rare. Conversations over the phone were short. Holidays were spent quietly, each of us in our own corner of the room. I watched my son caught in the middle. He didn't see it as betrayal. He thought we just had differences, misunderstandings. I tried to tell myself the same, but deep down I knew something had changed. Then came the day of the birthday celebration. I baked a cake, decorated the house, and waited for them to arrive. Michael came in smiling as always, but Anna's eyes were cold. She barely said hello. During dinner, she made a comment about how my cooking was different than how she liked it. And Michael didn't defend me. I felt invisible, though I was sitting right there. That night, as I drove home, tears rolled silently down my cheeks. I didn't cry in front of them. I never did. But inside, the hurt was growing quietly, like water slowly filling a jar. It became harder to keep hope alive. I wanted to believe that love could overcome tension, that family ties would protect me. But the walls were rising. I felt like I was losing not just a relationship with Anna, but with my son too. Conversations with him became cautious, careful. He didn't want to upset anyone, and I understood. But I missed the days when we could talk freely, laugh freely, and share moments without worry. I started questioning myself. Was I too controlling? Too emotional? Had I failed as a mother? But no matter how much I reflected, the answers didn't come. All I knew was that the warmth I once felt in our family was slipping away, and there was nothing I could do to stop it. The real breaking point came quietly, almost unexpectedly. It wasn't a fight or a loud argument. It was a simple afternoon like any other. I had gone to their house to drop off a small gift for Michael's promotion at work. I thought it would be a joyful surprise. Instead, it became the moment I realized everything had changed. Anna opened the door. Her smile was polite but distant. I handed her the gift and said softly, "I wanted to bring this for Michael. I'm so proud of him." She took it, placed it on the counter, and said, "You should leave. Now." I blinked. My heart skipped. I wanted to ask why, to understand, but I knew there was no gentle way to ask. She repeated it, firmer this time. "Please just go." I felt the world shift beneath my feet. I remembered all the birthdays, all the dinners, all the laughter we shared. I remembered the nights I stayed up worried about Michael, the mornings I woke early to make him breakfast. And now it seemed it didn't matter. My presence, my love, my years of care, they counted for nothing. I took a deep breath. I smiled softly. "Okay," I said. And I left. Walking to my car, rain falling lightly around me, I felt a wave of grief I had never known. It wasn't anger that consumed me. It wasn't rage. It was sorrow, deep and quiet. I thought about my son, how he must feel caught in the middle, and my heart ached for him too. I knew he loved us both, but I also knew the damage was done. Over the next few days, I tried to reach out to Michael. I left messages, sent texts, even mailed a letter. I wanted to explain my feelings, to share my heart. But Anna intercepted them. Every message was met with silence or a curt response. The realization hit me hard. She had built a wall around my son, around our family, and I could not break through. I spent hours alone, thinking, reflecting, crying quietly in my bedroom. I remembered my own mother, now long gone, and how she had faced hardships with quiet strength. I thought about the life I had lived, the love I had given, and I knew I had done nothing wrong. Yet the pain remained. I felt betrayed, yes, but also powerless. It was in those quiet moments that I began to understand something important. Life isn't always fair. People we love can hurt us even without meaning to. Sometimes relationships change, and the only thing we can control is how we respond. I chose calm. I chose dignity. I chose to love without expectation, even when it wasn't returned. Months passed. The distance remained. Michael and I spoke less, our conversations brief and careful. I visited less often, fearing confrontation. I focused on myself, on my home, on my life outside of them. It was painful but necessary. I had to find a way to heal without resentment. I began journaling. Writing down my feelings helped me process the grief. I wrote about the birthday cakes, the shared meals, the laughter that seemed so far away. I wrote about the moments of betrayal and the quiet sorrow that followed. Each word was a small release, a way to let go of the hurt that weighed me down. I also found comfort in friends, in community, in people who listened without judgment. I shared my story quietly, carefully, with those who could understand. It wasn't about seeking sympathy. It was about being heard, being validated, and reminding myself that love is not always conditional. Over time, I learned to let go of the anger, the sadness, and the desire to fix things that couldn't be fixed. I realized that my relationship with my son didn't have to be defined by her actions. I could love him quietly from a distance without conflict. It wasn't easy, but it was freeing. One day, months later, Michael reached out. He called me one evening, his voice soft, almost hesitant. "Mom," he said, "I miss you." My heart lifted, though cautiously. We spoke for a long time about small things, about memories, about life. There was still tension, yes, but also connection. Slowly, we began to rebuild, piece by piece. I never expected Anna to apologize. I never expected her to change. And I stopped hoping. Instead, I focused on what I could control. My own heart, my own love, my own peace. And in that space, I found strength I didn't know I had. I started inviting Michael to small family gatherings outside of her influence. We shared meals, laughed quietly, and remembered the bonds that could not be broken by anger or betrayal. It wasn't perfect, and it never would be. But it was real, and it was healing. I also learned to forgive, not for her, but for myself. Forgiveness isn't about forgetting. It's about releasing the burden of pain and making room for love again. I forgave her quietly in my heart, and I felt a weight lift. Life continued, imperfect, messy, and beautiful in its own way. Looking back, that rainy afternoon when she told me to leave feels like a turning point in my life. It was painful, yes, but it also taught me something profound. Family is not always about proximity. Love is not always about presence. Sometimes the deepest bonds are those that survive distance, misunderstanding, and quiet heartbreak. I still think about Anna, not with anger but with understanding. People have their own struggles, fears, and insecurities. I can't control their choices, only my response. And I choose love, patience, and quiet strength. I think about Michael often. I love him as fiercely as ever, and I know he feels the same. Our bond wasn't broken. It was tested, stretched, and challenged. And through it all, it endured. To anyone listening, to anyone who has felt betrayed, excluded, or invisible within their own family, it's okay to feel hurt. It's okay to grieve. But also remember that your heart is resilient. Love doesn't always come back the way you expect, but but it can continue to exist quietly, steadily, in ways that matter. Life will hand you moments of betrayal, moments of sorrow, and moments that seem unfair. But in each of these moments there is a choice: to carry anger or to carry love, to hold resentment or to hold peace. I chose peace. I chose love. And in that choice I found myself again. The day my daughter-in-law turned against me was painful. It was heartbreaking. But it was also a day of learning, reflection, and quiet strength. And for that I am grateful, because even in loss there is growth. Even in betrayal there is understanding. And even when doors close, the heart always finds a way to remain open.